Imagine for a second that you are an intelligence agency. You want to know exactly what 1.4 billion people are thinking, feeling, and fearing in real time. Usually, that kind of power costs billions of dollars. It hides behind classified clearances and government contracts. But what if I told you that today, that power sits in a public repository on GitHub, and it was built by a single student? This is not science fiction. This is a tool called BettaFish. It is an open source public opinion analysis system that does not just scrape the web. It claims to decode the collective consciousness of the entire Chinese internet, from TikTok's twin sister Douyin to Weibo to private forums. And right now, the global developer community is freaking out about it. Because this is not just code. It is a weaponized dashboard available for free download. But here is the part nobody expected. Usually, when we talk about sentiment analysis, we are talking about simple keyword counting. You know, counting how many times someone said the word happy or sad. BettaFish is different. It does not just count words. It employs a multi-agent hive mind that actually argues with itself to find the truth. It is less like a calculator and more like a digital intelligence agency in a box. Let me break down how this actually works, because the architecture is brilliant and slightly terrifying. It starts with a Python Flask orchestrator. Think of this as the air traffic controller. You type in a question like, what do people think of Apple products? The controller does not answer you. Instead, it wakes up 3 distinct AI agents, each with a very specific job and a very specific personality. First, you have the insight agent. This is your data scientist. It writes SQL code to dig through massive databases of scraped comments. Then, you have the media agent. It uses computer vision to watch videos, read protest signs, and analyze memes. And finally, the query agent, which scours the open web and news sites. They all go out, gather intelligence, and bring it back to the central hub. But this is where it gets crazy. In a normal system, these agents would just dump their data in a pile and give you a summary. But BettaFish uses something called forum engine. It forces these AI agents to debate each other, literally. The media agent might say, hey, everyone on video is angry. But the query agent says, actually, the news reports are positive. They argue. They cite evidence. And a moderator AI forces them to reconcile the contradictions before you ever see a report. This leads to insights that no human analyst would ever catch. Here is a real example from the system. When asked about Donald Trump, you might expect the data to be about trade wars or geopolitics. But BettaFish found something else. It surfaced a massive wave of anxiety among elderly users about soybean prices. It turns out a huge slice of sentiment was driven by the cost of cooking oil, not international relations. That is the power of the tool. It finds the hyperlocal obsessions hidden inside the national noise. But to do this, the system needs fuel. And that fuel is data. BettaFish uses a custom spider crawler to scrape over 30 different social platforms continuously. It does not wait for you to ask a question. It is always eating. It ingests millions of posts, tags them with hotness scores, and stores them in a database that acts like a private mirror of the Chinese internet. This brings us to the strategic twist. Most Western analytics tools are obsessed with Twitter or Reddit. But those platforms are tiny compared to the ecosystems BettaFish targets. By focusing on platforms like Xiaohongshu and Jihu, it accesses a user base north of 1 billion people. It is arguably the largest focus group in human history, accessible via a Docker container you can run on a cheap laptop. But here's where we hit the wall, the legal wall. This tool is technically radioactive. In almost every jurisdiction, from China's PIPL to Europe's GDPR, what BettaFish does is likely illegal. It scrapes personal data without consent. It builds psychological profiles of citizens. It is a privacy nightmare wrapped in clean, elegant Python code. So, if you try to run this, you are walking through a minefield. The developers even included a feature where the media agent needs a WeChat account to function. And that is the point of failure. If you do not have a verified account, the system crashes. It is a fragile beast. But the fact that it exists at all changes the game. We are moving from an era where surveillance was the monopoly of states to an era where it is open source software. BettaFish proves that a single developer can build a mind-reading engine that rivals the CIA. The barrier to entry has dropped to zero. Today, it is used to check soybean prices. Tomorrow, it could be used to manipulate elections or target individuals. The repository already has over 30,000 stars. That is not a niche project. That is a movement. People are hungry for this kind of power. And while the legal team scramble to figure out the rules, the code is already out there. You cannot put the genie back in the bottle when the genie is a zip file on the internet. This raises the ultimate question for us. If everyone has a surveillance machine in their pocket, does privacy exist anymore? Or are we entering the age of total transparency, whether we like it or not? I want to know what you think. Is this tool a breakthrough for researchers or a weapon that should be banned? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to stay ahead of the AI curve and understand the tools that are reshaping our world, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I dive deep into the tech that others are too afraid to touch. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.